Waterloo Solitaire. This is the second game in the book game line of games by Worthington Games. I played and reviewed Bismarck Solitaire recently, and I like the game so much I wanted to give a try to this one. So we're in Waterloo, and there are basically two styles of game here. There is one game that depicts Waterloo from the point of view of the French, and the other series of games in here still. Waterloo from the point of view of the Allies. Now, each then comes in different flavors, but those flavors have to do with the level of difficulty. So you have the less challenging, more challenging, and super crazy challenging French game, and the less kind of challenging, super challenging setup or version for the Allied game. That means that basically, again, you have three levels of difficulty and you have two kinds of games. Right there, this means it's a game that has a little less variety, in my opinion, as to my perception, less variety of gameplay than Bismarck, in which you did have different scenarios which weren't just harder or more difficult. If you remember that game, there was just more variety in the ways in which different enemies would attack you, would ambush you, where the good convoys, where the good targets could be. And so, I just feel that this game offers a little less variety in that sense, while giving you a range of difficulty. But the overall structure of, say, easier French side and harder French side remains a lot more similar. Now, the idea is that this is a kind of legacy kind of game that you open a page and you're gonna have here the board, where you will mark the actions by filling in or crossing out spaces. That's going to be your main interaction with the board. You're going to add a six-sided die, roll dice, and you mark also stuff down here, which means the game a little bit of a legacy game, meaning you physically alter it as you play. At the end, it'll become a unique artifact. You look at it like, look at that time that I lost in 2 turns. And so the whole page was gone because of that. I'm never gonna play that way, not my way, and that's why I made copies and so of basically each page, and that's the way I'm gonna play. And that's where I play it. I stick the page there. I hold it this way so that I can look up at the player aid with the bot, and then I'm looking down at that thing at the board, and I'm marking things right there. So that's the way I play. I don't know, less colorful, but I can still tell which side is which. I can still remember which one is the red, which one is the green, and which one is the blue. I still know that I need to take Hugmont, or not, but I still know that Hugmont is a problem. And if you know anything about Waterloo, you know what I'm talking about. So, general idea here. The game will last up to 18 turns. And we're going to look at the French game first. And of course, first you mark the turn that is starting. Then you will choose an action. The actions that you take are limited. So with the second core, I can activate it only 4 times. That means I can only take up to 4 actions with the second core, up to 4 actions with the first, and so on and so forth. 5 times during the game, I can do combined arms using combined arms tactics, which means if I decide to do so, I will mark one of those slots as a reminder, and then I choose one of my groups to be the main group. Suppose I decide this to be the main group, and then another group that could attack the same target, I will designate it as the support, and to do so I will place an S there. So that's how you do combined tactics. Or again, if I take a normal turn instead, I simply mark one box saying, okay, I'm activating the second core. That's it. When you do combined tactics, one will be the main group, and when you do one action, of course, that will be the only group. So each group, when you decide to activate a group to perform an action, the player will tell you whom they can attack, because that's what they do. They go forward and they attack. That's what this is all about. It's not so much about complicated maneuvers. It's like pushing different areas of the line, different parts of the line at different times. Super simple. The indication there will tell you the targets that you can decide to attack, with restrictions. If I attack Huguemont, I will have a +2 modifier. It's bad, so in case you're wondering, high rolls are bad for the French. I could attack the Allied right wing, right there. And if Huguemont is still allied, if I haven't taken it before, I'll have a penalty of +/-1. I can also attack the reserve, but only if the right wing has been destroyed. So that's it, as simple as that. I choose an action, but I don't get to resolve it yet, because first you commit to an action, then the opponent will take an action. To resolve the action of the enemy, simplicity itself. Roll a die and do what it says. If I roll the die, I simply implement that. In some cases, they'll attack me. In some cases, they'll do different things, such as, will simply force me to ignore a hit that I give them afterwards. They may attack me in different ways. There may be tactical events that are triggered. But it's pretty much self-explanatory. It boils down to as simple as roll a die, read, and do what it says. If they attack you, that's where you resolve combat, which means you roll a die and number of hits will be applied. And that's the same table that then you will use later. So after you resolve the action of the opponent and possibly take hits, now you finally get to resolve your own action. And by the way, when somebody takes hits, it's to indicate that, you will simply mark that space. Suppose that the opponents attack me and they gave 2 points of damage, they inflicted 2 hits on the second core. That's how I do it. And then, so again, just to summarize the turn structure, mark the turn, commit to an action, resolve the enemy action, and then you finally get to resolve yours. If still possible, suppose your core that you're committed was annihilated, then too bad for you. When you resolve the action, again, you will choose somebody to attack, you will roll a die, apply modifiers, look at this, and hits will occur. Hopefully on them, not so likely. You're gonna take a lot of hits. And the different sides have slightly different victory conditions, but the idea, of course, is for the French to inflict a lot of damage on the Allies when you're playing the Allied game. It's to inflict a lot of damage on the French, or to survive, or to make it until the end. There's more of a line in the sand feel for the Allied, which of course befits the theme. Reserves, that's a little bit of a slightly different things. You can use the reserves to attack, or you can also transfer your reserves to these slots here. So for example, you can take the reserve action to transfer 2 reserves to, say, the first core, in which case I simply fill in those areas, and now those are added to that. And of course, they can be assigned hits as normal. And sometimes it's good to have a big, scary core, because the other side may be affected by that. They may be always go, oh no, we don't attack because, it's too scary. Trust me, you'll see what that means. So this is the idea. It's very simple. Commit to an action, resolve an enemy attack, resolve your action, see if you're still in the game, and then continue until you meet a victory, or more likely a defeat condition. When it comes to the French game, Huguemont really is the linchpin. Like, either you ignore it entirely or you go for it. And I lost games because I went all in on Huguemont, and between the damage that they took trying to take it, and then they just so happened they attacked me in that area, I lost the second core by turn 3. And that's bad. Let's put it that way. Just to give you a sense of what the board looks like when we're looking at the Allied game against French attack. Of course, now that's what it looks like. So now the Prussians. Now we're happy to see the Prussians arrive. With whichever game you're playing, when the Prussians arrive, you fill in those areas to indicate that they're there. For the French game, 7 Prussians on the board is bad. That's why from time to time you gotta also attack them. The Allied game basically works the same, with of course a different narrative situation, different challenges, and again more of an idea that you can win by not losing until the last turn. Again, just to give you a sense of how it works here. But very simple, very intuitive. So I definitely like Bismarck and I like Waterloo Solitaire also. My personal taste, I may just like Bismarck a little bit more, which is not a negative on this one. It's just that I like that one even better. Doesn't mean that this one is not absolutely good. I like more the variety of the narratives. I like that. I'm gonna say the B-17 feel to it. People complain that I mentioned B-17, Queen of the Sky, a little too much, but I do, and actually I think I should mention it more often, just for the fun of it, because it's an awesome game. And it's a game that has military events depicted in a very strong narrative form, which is precisely what Bismarck does. Here, the situation is a little more static. It's a little more limited, and that's just the way the situation of Waterloo is. It's not a huge campaign. It's not about things going in crazy different ways. I have to choose how to budget my resources, where to push, where to reinforce, where to divert forces. All great, all fantastic, all great ways of capturing Waterloo. It just has less of a narrative flow and more of a tactical meat grinder, more of a tactical puzzle. So I like it. I like this one too. It's quicker because, again, you may, at least I happen to have lost very quickly, which made me happy that they make copies. I think I would have been pretty annoyed of consuming a page of the game and losing in 3 turns. So it's quick. It is zero setup. Once you know the game, you have a pen and a die, and that's it. The game is set up. You open it and you play, or you take out a copy, which you're not supposed to be making, I think, but don't tell anybody that I did. So, open the book. The game is set up. Super simple. Travels very well. And it still gives you a nice, compelling, powerful representation of the battle. I mean, it's all there. It's all the elements that you expect. All the forces, all the dynamics have been captured very well. The narrative, again, though restricted when compared to, say, Bismarck, is it's all there, and it's still very powerful, very compelling, as the French are still gonna be trying to gain some advantage as the Prussians are coming. Then you have an interesting decision, because you may try to divert some forces to keep the Prussians at bay, or just ignore them and try to go for the victory before they make it there. I still haven't figured out which one is the better strategy, which I think is great, which I think it's a strength of the design. Good designs give us precisely that, a sort of dilemma of not knowing which one is the better strategy. That is what makes for interesting decisions. So you have a theme which is very well implemented. You do have interesting decisions when it comes to budgeting your forces. There are times where I'm almost there, and just the people that I need to activate have been activated. That's when your commander comes in, because he can activate units that don't have activations anymore. But those also are not infinite. So you really have an emphasis on resources, but not in a Eurogamey kind of way, more like a strict opportunity cost. Plus, again, the timer of the Prussians that create the pressure and creates a very interesting situation. So I definitely enjoy Waterloo Solitaire. I think it's a really good and very playable, very fun representation of a pivotal moment in military history. And it does it with a minimal overhead of rules. The rules are simple and intuitive. It does it in a way that is very smooth, very playable, and very compelling, which, to me, that's a great thing. Definitely high endorsement from me for Waterloo Solitaire.